The median full-time worker in the United States earns roughly $60,000 a year today. That sounds like a fixed, normal fact of the modern economy. But if working people had simply maintained the exact same share of economic growth that they held half a century ago, that average worker would be bringing home closer to $120,000 a year. This chart shows exactly when that income vanished. For decades, American productivity and worker wages rose in perfect tandem. When the economy grew, paychecks grew. But in the mid-1970s, those two lines abruptly split apart. Productivity kept climbing, while wages flatlined. That massive, growing void between what workers produce and what they are paid represents trillions of dollars. Instead of going into the pockets of the middle class, that wealth was systematically redirected to the top 1% of earners. We are taught that the modern market is a game of skill and hard work, where effort directly correlates to reward. The math tells a different story. It reveals a highly structured board where the rules mathematically guarantee that only the players starting at the very top can win. This divergence is the predictable outcome of how the modern economy was re-engineered. Over the next few minutes, we're going to look at the specific policy choices that turned the middle class into a disappearing act. To understand how this works, look at rock, paper, scissors. In game theory, this is known as an ergodic system. Every single round is a fresh start. If you win 3 times in a row, you have 0 mathematical advantage in the 4th round. Monopoly is the exact opposite. It is a non-ergodic system. Early advantages compound. If you buy the right properties on the first trip around the board, you generate extra cash, which buys more properties, which extracts more rent. Eventually, one player owns the entire board, and everyone else goes bankrupt. The global capitalist economy naturally behaves like monopoly. Because advantages compound, left entirely to its own devices, a free market will eventually consolidate wealth into a few hands. For a long time, robust government policies acted as the rulebook to prevent total monopolies and protect the people actually doing the work. That changed in the late 1970s and 80s. A wave of policy known as neoliberalism began dismantling those guardrails. This was the trickle-down era, defined by slashing taxes for the ultra-wealthy, deregulating powerful corporations, and suppressing the wages of working people. The architects of these policies promised that freeing up capital at the top would create explosive economic growth that would lift everyone up. Instead, it delivered massive market concentration. The big got bigger, and the small got squeezed. By choosing to remove the rules that forced players to share the board, these policies shifted the global economy into a permanent game of late-stage monopoly. Today, 2 massive forces are dominating that board. The first is mega finance. Trillion-dollar private equity funds are currently buying up vast swaths of residential housing, turning the utility of a family home into a financialized asset. Their stated goal is to create a permanent, lifelong rental class. The second force is megatech. A handful of multinational corporations now operate as borderless monopolies. They extract billions in local wealth, hollow out local supply chains, and utilize their massive scale to crush competition. Because of their sheer size, these tech giants can actively choose which rules they follow. They rely entirely on a nation's infrastructure, roads, and consumers to generate revenue, but they route those profits through offshore paper headquarters to pay effectively 0 local tax. Now, place that borderless advantage next to a mom-and-pop business, like a local pub. That pub operates on razor-thin margins. It carries heavy local property taxes, it complies with strict employment regulations, it absorbs the impacts of inflation. Right next door, a multinational coffee chain sells lattes to the exact same community, but the coffee chain deducts a massive licensing fee for its own logo, pays that fee to a Bermuda subsidiary, wiping out its taxable profit for the year. The game is stacked so heavily that the local players creating the most jobs are being systematically pushed off the board by faceless megacorps. Artificial intelligence is arriving on this monopolized board with the power to radically compress the speed of disruption. To understand the immediate danger of AI, we have to look back to the early 1800s. The introduction of steam engines and spinning looms triggered a brutal period called the Engels Pause. The owners of those early machines saw their profits skyrocket instantly. But for the people doing the labor, wages and quality of life stagnated entirely. For 50 years, 2 full generations, working people went backward, while industrialists accumulated extreme wealth. AI threatens a second Engels Pause. When a single employee equipped with an AI agent can execute the tasks of 5 people, the value of human labor diminishes. Without immediate intervention, this shift will finalize the divide between the owners of the algorithms and the people trying to sell their time. Unless the rules are rewritten, the AI revolution will likely make the divide between owners and laborers a permanent feature of the economy. The death of the middle class is a policy choice. We wrote the rules that got us here, which means we have the power to rewrite them before the game ends. Economists argue over 2 primary solutions. Path 1 is raise the floor. This requires aggressive state intervention to mandate progressive minimum wages, expand labor standards, and aggressively break up the strategic tech and finance monopolies. Path 2 is build more doors. This strategy focuses on hyper-incentivizing small business creation and broad-based asset ownership. It also demands that massive tech monopolies pay fixed broadcast licenses to access local consumers, ensuring wealth stays in the communities that generate it. This animated diagram illustrates how both paths will require new structures, like sovereign wealth funds. Since AI models are trained on the collective data of humanity, nations could claim an ownership stake in those models, distributing a percentage of the profits back into public assets. Markets are highly effective systems for solving human problems, but that power only serves the public when markets are managed for broad participation rather than narrow accumulation. A capitalist democracy runs on a simple equation. The system only survives if the middle class earns enough money to actually buy the goods and services the system produces. When inequality reaches these levels, a society begins to tear itself apart. It shreds the social cohesion that makes democracy possible, leading to a breaking point where the status quo can no longer be sustained. If we let the top 1% play Monopoly until they own every single square, the game simply stops, and the only thing left for the rest of society to do is flip the board.